All right, welcome to this panel session today on digitalization in crewing. We have a very nice and inspiring panel for you ready today, which I'm honored to introduce. First of all, we have Eleftheria Letsiu, the head of Global Account Management Shipping within ATPI Marine and Energy. Then we have Nathalie Den Boer, process analyst at Stolt Tankers. We have Matt Reyes, SVP Global Sales at Qatar Airways, and Nick Clark, the CEO at Greywing. Welcome and thank you all for joining us here. My name is Jochem Hemming and I'm the head of sales shipping at ATPI Marine and Energy, and I'm your moderator for this panel session today. With those introductions done, let us turn to the panel. And I would like to start with you, Eleftheria, and ask you about how is managing a maritime crew in an important element of managing travel for maritime crew is an important element of a crew change. So how does it involve a significant spend and a cumbersome process in certain cases? So how do you see digitalization and crew travel management are linked? Can you explain us a little bit on that?
Yes, hi Jochem, thank you very much. Well, let me start by saying that crew travel is no longer just about issuing a ticket that is maybe $5 cheaper than another travel agent can book it. Crew travel today is a transformed client experience which the travel management company offers the travel management company offers transparency and efficiencies through applying digital technologies such as system integrations, automations, and data consolidation, for example. These are all part of the digitalization, and with these, we can transform the business model of the shipping companies. At the same time, crew travel management is also about partnership, a relationship in which we act as the client's extension, pretty much. And in these relationships, travel management companies proactively offer consultative advice on travel booking behaviors and trends that can bring higher savings than the pre-mentioned $5. So one can say that a system integration and automation of crew change are pretty much tactical digitalization moves for a shipping company towards becoming more efficient. And these tactical solutions often do involve also data in different stages, but pre-crew travel. But data can also be used more strategic, post-crew change. And there are important findings that can be made post-crew change. And this is where data and analytics come in as the key accelerants of any organization's digitalization and transformation efforts. And they play an important role in smart decision-making today.
Right. Okay. So using data to drive strategic decisions, how exactly does that help make search findings? Can you expand on that?
Yes, I'm happy to. I could talk for hours about all of this, but let me put it in short. So strategic use of data in the crew travel or even the whole crew change process means analyzing, monitoring past data. And it's not just enough to look at data for somebody that may misinterpret it. In order not to misinterpret data, but identify valuable insights, people need to ask the right questions and understand all processes, and then effectively lead to making better data-driven decisions. And this is where the specialized travel management company plays a vital role to share the data findings in such a way, through a story sometimes, that provides for easier understanding. The goal is to visualize something practical and plausible and real even to the audience. So in other words, something that is thought-provoking and together with consultation will allow the shipping stakeholders at the end of the day make a better business decision.
All right, and what examples can you give for this? Do you have some examples?
Yes, I do actually. Let me start with advance purchase. So we keep telling clients that booking well in advance can bring significant savings. And of course, this is common knowledge to everybody when we book our holiday tickets. But it's only really when we visualize this information correctly to our clients that, and using our expertise in both industries, shipping and travel, that shipping stakeholders can actually see the impact of not booking large amounts of travel even a few days earlier. So as an example, as a more specific example, the majority of crew travel is between Asia and Europe. So most of the companies book quite last minute, but the difference between booking 14 days in advance or even more can be up to $200 per person cheaper. So showcasing this with examples and showing that the company could save 7 to 10% on travel costs if they would halve the last time minute bookings is the accelerator for shipping stakeholders to find ways to improve processes towards this direction. And now, of course, I know we cannot apply this to all companies, for example, companies with fleets on the spot market. And this is where a different analysis comes into place. The total, we have the so-called total port cost analysis, sorry. And that can also bring significant insights on savings. So it's because it's not just enough to look at air tickets only when land arrangement costs can have much more significant impact on the total crew change cost. So combining this data and analyzing allows for identification of green and red ports, really. And then again, it's up to the respective teams to use this knowledge correctly and achieve these important savings when possible.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Eleftheria. Actually, with that said, and your examples of taking data to a strategic level, I'd like to turn to you, Matt, and to see and to hear from you how has digitalization has worked for you as within an airline, and yeah, if you could expand a little bit on that for this audience.
Okay, thank you, Joachim, and it's a pleasure to join you on this panel again.
Right.
I think listening to Eleftheria, I think in some ways we're heading in the same direction, but maybe a little bit from opposite perspectives. For airlines, planning and scheduling used to be a very, very stable task, something we reviewed maybe 2 times a year, what we called the Northern Winter, which we've just entered, and the Northern Summer. Those days of 2 schedules a year, well and truly gone with this pandemic. It's forced us all to be far more agile and flexible. Still see to this day markets opening, closing, red lists, green lists, special rules for some customer types, particularly seafarers tend to have some intricate rules around how they can move. So we see our role as trying to absorb that sort of massive influx of data to act more strategically in our response. And ultimately what we're trying to achieve is to be a reliable business partner for our customers, both our B2B customers, such as the shipping agencies and the TMC specialists, also our B2C customers. And what do we mean by reliability? Well, one thing that we've taken to heart during the pandemic is to plan our schedule and then build up as we tune into demand, rather than to cast the net wide and then cut back on schedules and maybe leave people stuck around the plans. So it's to be reliable on the way through. We like to, acknowledging that journeys are still disrupted and it's difficult to get from one side of the world to the other. We've decided to make the journey more comfortable en route. And for our seafarers, that meant opening a lounge more or less a year ago and sort of improving the comfort level of the journey, knowing that it's a more difficult time. I think finally we would say engaging closely with our customers and business partners around what exactly their needs are and to understand what kind of flexibility requirements sit with that. So whether they can book and change or cancel the tickets, all that kind of stuff I think feeds into being a reliable business partner. And that's how we like to have positioned ourselves. So we were very pleased to have it recognised recently through the Sea Trade Awards as an investment in people, particularly for this audience, particularly for our efforts with the maritime communities. So that's how we've seen the pandemic and how we've embraced some of those challenges. And we hope to be here as a long-term business partner as the world gets a little bit more normal.
Yeah, that's great, Matt. Thank you very much, and definitely, yeah, good to hear about those views and efforts made on your side at Qatar Airways. So I'd like to take this further and then here to the point of view from a ship manager's side. So Natalie, when it comes to digitalization, can you share some of your experiences and efforts that you've made with bringing in digitalization into the crew management process at Stolt Tankers?
Absolutely, I can. Yeah, at a certain point in time, of course, we said, yeah, where can we improve and make our processes more transparent and efficient? And will that help us to digitalize? And yes, it does. So when we got the option from ATP Digitalisation, we have an online booking tool. Maybe you can use it. And then we think, well, what if we integrate it with our system? Because when you have integration within systems, it is time saving at the end, of course, and it makes it more transparent for everyone as well, for all the users. Who has done what? At what stage is the booking? What can we do to at the end maybe to save money? Indeed, what Eleftheria already mentioned is if you book flights longer in advance, will us help that? And by having all the data digitalized, you can get the data out of it as well, and to make decisions on what are we going to do in the future. And of course, integration with our travel system is not the only thing. We are working on more things. We've been working on an app for our crew, which will help our crew to be more connected with the company. So they have always their updated files, their documents on hand. A simple app, they can submit expenses, they can be up to date with company news, which we share with them via the app. Yeah, and that's of course something that, especially during the pandemic, is very important. When before everyone could visit our manning agencies, our offices regularly, yeah, that's no longer possible. So how do you stay connected? And an app on that case is helping us very much. And then you see that people get interested as well. They're, oh, maybe I can suggest something. Even the crew is doing that. They're very enthusiastic about it as well. Of course, some people need to get used to digitalization, but most of our crew is accepting it very willingly and make even suggestions for changes. Yeah, and that's always very good to see, of course. And then even the next step would be maybe to integrate the travel itineraries into the app as well. So then they can really have the whole process, everything from in one location, and that's very helpful. It's time saving, of course, and then they have always the latest information. They know what's going on, what's the office doing for me, and what is their plan. That's very good. Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, so it's interesting to hear you say that one of the obviously the main benefit to start this process was around efficiency, and an interesting side effect is actually that you create more engagement among your crew members who are now actually proactively starting to make suggestions to the business on how the digitalization efforts can be further explored and benefited from.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to have that additional benefit of it. Yeah.
Amazing.
So the systems are more transparent, and it's very good.
Yeah, fabulous. Yeah. All right, excellent. Thank you very much, Natalie, for that contribution. So then the question now is basically I would like to go over to you, Nick, and as you are with Greywing, you're very much in the forefront of using data to drive maritime intelligence. and that you help customers really making strategic decisions out of that also Eleftheria was already referring to in her commentary. So what is in your view, what is your view on digitalization opportunities within the crew management arena? Can you share some of your thoughts maybe?
Thank you, Joachim. Pleasure to be on the panel, and I think I had to smile when Natalie mentioned integration, because I think, if there's a fundamental principle that we've realized, it's that, many of the people that we engage with are using disparate data sources, they're using suppliers or supply chains that aren't necessarily integrated, and there's this, silo effect of data that's trapped in either public or private silos where they can't bring it together to rapidly get to the point to make a decision. And it also sounds like Natalie's pretty far ahead on the digitization side of things, because, from our experience, I would say digitization hasn't really hit crewing. I would say it's really just the beginning of that wave where people are coming in around the edges. You've got, companies like ATPI coming in and bringing their, large data techniques and these troves of data that are hugely valuable to the clients, and beginning to break them down and apply them at certain pressure points where they can provide huge value. To save $200 a ticket is almost crazy and unheard of, and yet that's the effect that harnessing data that you've probably just got trapped on your hard drive can have. I mean, it's not on the hard drive anymore, is it? It's in the cloud, but you get where I'm coming from. And then I suppose the other thing that jumps to mind is, when COVID hit, it introduced that level of complexity where, for many crewing operators that we'd spoken to, they'd been running 5, 10, 15% overdue on many of the crew changes all along, even in non-COVID times. But when COVID hit, that got pushed up to 40, 50, 60% for some operators. And it really got to that level of complexity that Matt described, where the problem was no longer possible to solve at the level of thinking that had created it. Yeah. Digitization was brute forced into the industry, but I'd say it's still got a long way to go. Even as someone that is trying to work at the forefront, I would say we're just getting started.
Sure. Yeah. Interesting. What would you see, Nick, as the key opportunities that you would suggest crew managers or ship managers should pursue when it comes to digitalization?
Okay, that's an interesting one. So I think the first one is you always want to be setting up the conditions for success without necessarily making big bets. You want to be making lots of small bets along the way. And the way that I think about this with my business is, we try and invest in platforms or in software that's open, that we can integrate with other software, coming back to Natalie's point, and that's interoperable, so that we're never beholden to a single supplier or a single piece of software. We can always replace it and quickly move things in and out instead of being trapped. So I'd say always buy software that sits on an open platform that will play nicely with other software. And then I suppose, rather selfishly, I'd say play nicely with startups. I mean, have fun with them. There's a lot of startups out there. They've got these budgets. They've been given these, funding rounds to try and solve these complex problems. And you don't necessarily want to, bet the farm on a startup. I definitely wouldn't recommend that. What I'd say is dip your toe in the water. If there's people in your organization that are fascinated by moving towards or working with new technology, I'd say empower them, give them a bit of rope, almost enough to hang themselves, so they can get out there, get into the marketplace and see what's going on with different organizations. Because it may just be that you come across a startup that is, that potentially could 10x or 100x your piece of the business in terms of what they're able to do for you in the long term. And I will caveat that by saying most startups will fail. And that's why I say dip your toe in the water, have that awareness where you want to be in the marketplace, you want to be experimenting with what's available and to get that insight and that knowledge. And it is a lot of fun, but you always need to have in the back of your mind that, this is a startup, it may work out, may 10x or 100x, that's the best outcome. Most likely outcome is that won't happen. And I think you really need to have that sense of realism when you go into this kind of engagement. I think that's probably about it. from my perspective.
Great, yeah, interesting, and yeah, a lot of it obviously in digitalization requires a bit of trial and error, although well prepared. But yeah, you have to start somewhere. Like we saw with the comments from Natalie, that when you do something and you do it right, you may get a very fruitful side effect as well, with more engagement of your crew. So yeah, I think as a general conclusion, go for it, try things out, and yeah, and share. So like we do today, share with the industry so that yeah, we can all learn and grow together. Well, I think that completes our panel session for today on digitalization in crewing. We hope you found this very inspiring and informative as well. Please do connect with each of us should you have any further questions. This can be done through the platform. And of course, many thanks for joining us in this session today, and goodbye. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joachim.
Thanks, Joachim. Have a good day, guys.